Summer Bridge Week 3, Solid Friendships, Building a Dream Team and Having Your Own Back. Part 3, Having Your Own Back with Positive Self-Talk. Welcome back to Part 3 of Week 3 of the Summer Bridge program. As always, take a moment to check in with your mental and physical state and make sure you are ready to learn. If you need a drink of water, a stretch, a more comfortable place to sit, go ahead and do that now. Turn off your phone and get rid of any distractions, and also grab your journal so that you can take notes and record your reflections. Pause the video if you need to do anything to get into the right mind state for learning. All right, so let's get all set up for the learning. In your journal, in the next part where you have space, so not opening up to a random spot, but going to the next place where you have space, write today's date and the title of this part of the lesson, Having Your Own Back with Positive Self-Talk, or if you like, you can just shorten that down and just write Positive Self-Talk, because that is our focus for today. All right, and so by the end of this lesson, you should know what self-talk is. You should be able to recognize negative self-talk when it pops up in your mind, and you should know how to be kind to yourself with positive self-talk. So the reason we're going to talk about positive self-talk is that there is one relationship that you can never walk away from, and that's your relationship with yourself. And the truth is, some of us treat ourselves very badly in a way that no friend should ever treat someone else. So let's make a vow right now to be our own best friends, okay? I want you to think for a minute about your current relationship with yourself. And think which one of these statements reflects how you treat yourself and the amount of friendship, respect, and kindness that you show yourself right now. And when you choose the one, when you see the one that matches your experience, I want you to go ahead and say it out loud. For me, I treat myself with kindness and respect most of the time, and that's definitely something that I've learned to do as I've gotten older. How about you? Go ahead and say your statement. So no matter how good your friendship is with yourself, it can still get better. You can still learn more skills and be more active in supporting yourself. And the skill we're going to talk about today is positive self-talk. So first, let's do thermometer. How much do you know about the idea of positive self-talk? If you know exactly what I'm talking about and you are conscious of and control or influence your self-talk throughout the day, that's a thumbs up. If you've heard of it, but you still need a lot of practice in actually applying the concept, that would be a thumbs to the side. If you've never heard of positive self-talk, that would be a thumbs down. So basically, when we're talking about positive self-talk, we talk to ourselves throughout the day in our heads. And especially when we face a challenge or enter an uncertain situation, we have a tendency to say negative things to ourselves, okay? The talk inside our heads can be positive or negative, but for most of us, we find that when we're not paying attention, we say some pretty negative things to ourselves that do not help us to be our best self. So next, we're going to watch a video that introduces the basics of positive self-talk, and we're going to take some notes in our journal while we watch, okay? So we're going to use one of my favorite graphic organizers in order to take these notes. It's a very handy and versatile graphic organizer that you can use pretty much any time that you need to take notes where there might be two sides to what you are learning about, which is basically always. And so you're going to make a T-chart, so in your journal, and if you have this much space, that's great. If you only have this much space on your page, no big deal, don't worry about it. Make your T-chart, and on the left side, we're going to write negative self-talk, or I'm going to abbreviate it with just neg, because it's faster, right? And when we're taking notes, they're for ourselves. We don't have to worry about using complete sentences or even words. And on the right side, we're going to write pause self-talk. Okay? And then I'm going to put 3 bullet points on each side to remind me that while I'm watching the video, I need to write down 3 facts or important ideas about negative self-talk and 3 about positive self-talk. Okay? I left plenty of space because I don't know how much room those facts or ideas are going to take up. So if you need to pause the video to set up your chart, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, we are going to move on to the video, and while you watch, you're going to take these notes. So hopefully you learned some things about negative and positive self-talk and the way that our interior monologue can affect our actions and behavior. Please look over your notes and place a star by the idea in the video that was the most important to you personally. Now take a moment to think about your own self-talk. How do you treat yourself when you make a mistake or enter an uncomfortable situation? Do you say things to yourself like the characters from the video? I myself have learned over time to be kind to myself, but I've wasted a lot of time throughout my life criticizing myself and calling myself names in my head, and finally realized that that does not help me to do better next time. There are many ways that we can practice being more positive in our self-talk, and this poster has some really good information about some of them. I know it's small and hard to see, so it's also posted on Schoology, so you can look at it a little bit later. But right now I just want to highlight a couple of things from the second section, Challenge Your Self-Talk. The first one that I want to mention briefly is it says, what would I say if a friend were in a similar situation? We've talked a lot about how friends can support each other. Think about if your friend had a problem, how you would encourage them, how you would help them to think of ways to solve the problem, and you would help them to keep in mind all their good qualities and that it's not their fault. Think about if you had that same problem, how you're likely to probably blame yourself and not treat yourself with kindness and respect. Instead, try telling yourself exactly what you would tell your friend, that same encouragement and advice. Another idea that I want to highlight from that section is the third one that says, can I do anything to change what I'm feeling bad about? Sometimes instead of beating ourselves up, we can just fix the situation. An example of this is like, sometimes people might have negative self-talk or feel insecure or embarrassed because they think they smell bad at the end of the school day. That's just facts. And so they could think to themselves, can I change it? Well, you could carry some deodorant in your bag and you could use it at lunch. And then the problem that has you feeling so bad about yourself could be gone. All right, so do look this over on your own time. And right now we are going to practice the third step down here, which is change your self-talk. We're going to look at some specific examples of negative self-talk and flip them over to the positive. So let's practice. Here are some common statements, negative self-talk statements that might have happened in your own mind or you might have heard other people say. Everyone hates me at this school. We might feel like that if we feel like we have no one to sit with or if people are being mean to us on a certain day. And those are real situations, but how could we respond positively? I haven't made many friends yet, but if I try getting to know people, I will. This is saying that there is an action that I can take, right, that is going to help my situation. And it's stating hope for the future. I'm not hopeless, I just haven't made a lot of friends yet. How about this? I'll never catch up in history. That can be a very overwhelming and hopeless feeling if you fall behind in class. But we can still respond positively. I have 4 missing assignments, I should ask for help. This is more specific about the problem. It's not a million missing assignments, it's 4. That makes it seem more doable than I'll never catch up. And also, if those 4 assignments are difficult or you don't know how to get started, you know what you can do to still make your situation better. Ask for help. This is also showing that you know that there are people in your life who support you and you can turn to for help, both teachers and friends. How about here? I am so clumsy. That's a pretty bold statement and pretty much of an insult to yourself. Let's see how we could change that. Ooh, that was embarrassing to trip in the lunchroom, but it happens to lots of people. I have plenty of athletic skills. Again, this takes it from an all day, every day, all about me statement of I am clumsy to a small specific problem. It was embarrassing when you tripped in the lunchroom in front of other people. And then also challenges the idea that you're clumsy by remembering that you have plenty of athletic skills. So uses evidence to challenge that idea. So what these all have in common is instead of taking a small problem and using that as proof that we are bad, we are unworthy, and we are broken, it takes a small problem and looks at the small problem and thinks about how we could change it and remembers that we are more than any small problem. We have value all the time and deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. So let's have you have a chance to do this on your own. So in your journal, you'll practice writing positive self-talk to replace negative self-talk. You can use these examples that I came up with, or if you have some negative self-talk that you're aware of in your head that you deal with a lot and you want to change, you can use those statements instead. So start by writing down the negative statement and then see how you can change it to be more hopeful, more action-oriented, more evidence-based. All right? Pause the video and take the time to write positive self-talk to replace the negative self-talk. All right, team, you did it. You made it through part 3, having your own back with positive self-talk. And here's your practice assignment to really seal in the learning from today. So in your journal, you're going to make a list of at least 6 things that you like about yourself. And if you get stumped trying to come up with those things, here's some questions that can help you. All right, so check out these questions for help getting started. If you don't need them, you don't have to use them. Now, I want to warn you because oftentimes when we start thinking about things that we like about ourselves or giving ourselves compliments, our brain kicks in with a lot of negative self-talk. So if I say, oh, I'm a really good cook, then the answer might be, oh, well, remember when you messed up that lasagna and it was terrible and nobody ate it, right? So your brain sometimes has a strong habit of negative self-talk that really kicks in when you start to challenge it with positive self-talk. So when that happens, just have a little space to the side where you can jot that down so that you're aware of it, so that it doesn't go unnoticed, because the thoughts that we don't notice actually sometimes have more power than the thoughts that we pay attention to. Because when we don't notice them, they just kind of go in the background as if they're true. But when we hear them as a sentence in our head, then we have a chance to challenge them and change them. Okay, so here's your practice assignments, and then after this, we have just one more part to this week's lesson. You are a real champion, and you're so dedicated to your own learning and your own success. I'm very proud of you, and I'll see you in a bit. Summer Bridge Week 3, Solid Friendships, Building a Dream Team and Having Your Own Back. Part 4, aka the final part, Having Your Own Back with Self-Coaching. All right, Summer Bridge fam, this is it. This is part 4 of this week's lesson. And before you settle in to do some high quality learning, check in with yourself. How is your mood? Are you calm and focused? Does your body need anything? A good breath, some water, a stretch? Are there any thoughts that are going to be distracting you that you need to just put to the side for now? Whatever it is, get ready to learn. Remember, it is your job to work with your body and brain to regulate your attention and focus during this learning and during all learning. All right. So in this section of this week's lesson, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, having your own back with self-coaching. I love this concept and I hope you will like it too. Oh, and I forgot to remind you, make sure that you have your journal handy. So, being your own coach. When we were talking about positive self-talk, we saw that when we look at unwanted situations or problems or mistakes in our lives, that we have the power to stop beating ourselves up about them. And when we can stop beating ourselves up for making mistakes, we can start looking at them as learning opportunities. So here's one of my favorite quotes from a personal hero of mine, Malcolm X. And actually, there's a small mistake in the quote. So it says, it should say, there is no better teacher than adversity. Every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lesson on how to improve your performance next time. And we are going to talk about a strategy for doing that. So get ready. Okay, we're going to be taking some notes. So let's make sure that our notes page is ready. If you're using a notebook, turn to the next clean page without skipping any pages and not opening to a random place. In the notebook, put today's date. Whether you are using a electronic or paper journal, make sure you put today's date and the topic of our lesson, which is week 3, part 4, self-coaching. I should have done this on the other slide when you could look at it, but I don't really feel like recording all these slides again, so we're just going to make do. Like my mother-in-law says, use it up, wear it out, make do, or do without. So hopefully you can see that, okay? Week 3, part 4, self-coaching. You can see I abbreviated week. I did that to save myself time. You can always do that when taking notes. Okay, so if any of you have a coach, a dance coach or a soccer coach or a baseball coach, you know how much they help you to be your best. They watch your performance and they critique you. They give you tips for how you can do better. And they also motivate you and fill you full of energy to keep going so that you can really be your best. So wouldn't it be cool if you had access to someone who could do that all the time in every situation 24/7? Guess what? You do. It's you. If you are your own coach, you will never be without a source of advice and encouragement, okay? And here's a little simple set of steps for self-coaching that you can use to turn any problem, situation, mistake, or disappointment, any adversity, into a great learning opportunity for yourself. So take a moment and write the steps for self-coaching in your journal, and as you write them, I will also read them out loud. Step 1, what went wrong? So that's just describe the situation. Step 2, why did that happen? Think about the root cause of the situation. Step 3, what's something different I can try next time? And on this step, I myself like to try to come up with at least 3 different suggestions, all right? Not just one, because that makes our minds more flexible. And it also puts ideas in our back pocket for if we come up with if we are in a similar situation again. And then you choose one of the different things that you could try. You try it out and notice if your strategy worked. Now this is very important. While you're using the steps of self-coaching, this is not an opportunity to criticize yourself, yell at yourself, break yourself down, right? You're going to use positive self-talk at every step. All right, so if you have written these steps down, that is great. If you still need to write them down, go ahead and pause the video here and then move on when you're ready. So let's check out these steps in action. I've chosen a fairly common difficulty here, which is I didn't do the work that was assigned for today. This is the thing that happened that made me notice that I need to go ahead and do this self-coaching steps. So step 1, what went wrong? I didn't read the chapter my teacher assigned. I played video games instead. So you notice that our answer to step 1 is actually more specific than the initial problem statement, right? It's more specific because we want more information so we can try to learn from the problem better. Okay, step 2, why did that happen? So since this is a made-up pretend situation, right, there's lots of different reasons why it could happen. So in your journal, what I'd like you to do, please, is brainstorm a few different answers to this question. Why might someone have played video games instead of reading the chapter? Okay, pause the video for 1 to 2 minutes and write as many different reasons you can think of why someone would have made that choice. Did you come up with some good reasons? Here are some reasons that I wrote down based on both my own experience and what I've observed with students. So the first one, the chapter seemed boring, but the video game was fun. I couldn't find my book. It was hard to read and I didn't understand what was going on. Or my friend asked me to be on her squad and I wanted to help her win. So those are some different possible reasons why someone might have played video games instead of reading the chapter. Now, if this was a real situation, there would be 1 or 2 reasons why it happened, and you would probably know what they were. But since we're just practicing, I'm just going to pick one of them. And I'm going to pick one that to me seems the most common, which is the chapter seemed boring, you know, but the video game was fun. So this is going to be the reason that we base our step 3 on, okay? So if I was bored by the assignment and I wanted to do something that's more fun, there are actually solutions for boredom. And these are some common ones that have worked for me or have worked for other students. So if boredom is a common barrier for you, you might choose to write down these ideas here in your notebook. If sometimes you get stymied from reaching your goal because of boredom. Okay, so here are some ideas for something different you could try next time. You could FaceTime a friend who has the same assignment and work on it together. If something is boring, one way that we can make it more interesting for ourselves is to turn it into a social event. Include other people on doing it with us. Another thing we could do is read for 10 minutes, then take a break and play a game, then read for another 10 minutes. By breaking something boring that we must do down into smaller chunks, it can make it seem less unpleasant, and it can require less of us to get it done. But keep in mind that if you choose this one, every time the game is over, you have to have the willpower to get back to reading. So that makes this solution difficult for some people. Here's one of my personal favorites, chewing gum or eating something crunchy like carrots or celery while I am reading something boring. Because when we think of what boredom is like when our brain is hungry. Our brain is hungry for information or entertainment. And one kind of information is sensory input. So in this example, you're adding sensory input by chewing something. You could also add sensory input by listening to music if that doesn't distract you. You could add sensory input to your skin by turning on a fan or going and sitting in the sun. So this is all about combating boredom with sensory input. And then this strategy, this last strategy here, is about combating boredom by getting your brain and your feelings more engaged with the task. So on every page, you can look for something that you agree with or relate to or disagree with or dislike. And this has helped me read a lot of boring things, especially this idea right here. If I read on purpose, looking for what to criticize about the text, I find I can get really emotionally involved in the activity. So for this practice scenario, I'm going to look over these different possibilities, and the one that I'm going to choose to try out would be a number 3. Chew gum or eat something crunchy like carrots or celery. And the reason why is because it is the simplest. It doesn't require another person. It doesn't require going back and forth and making the decision over and over again. It doesn't require a lot of brain power. It is just adding chewing. And in this situation, I already have celery in the refrigerator, so it's easy to do. Okay, so let's see. Then if this was a real life problem, I would try it out. I would get out my celery, I would get out my book, and I would see if I was able to complete the assignment under those conditions. If I wasn't, I might go back and choose a different one of these options that I already came up with, or I might think maybe boredom wasn't the real problem, and I might go all the way back to step 2 and think and try to think more carefully about the real root of the problem. And if these work, on the other hand, then when I have a future situation where I start to get bored, I will turn to my inner self-coach and say, hey girl, why don't you get out a piece of gum? Or why don't you call your friend so that you guys can do it together? So now it's your turn to come up with some creative ideas for step 3. So what I want you to do is choose a different possible reason for playing video games instead of reading the chapter. So not boredom, but a different reason. And you come up with some reasons in your journal, so you can use one of those. Or if you want to, you can use one of the other ideas that I came up with that I did not use, in the previous slide. So you're going to choose a different possible reason why you may have made the choice to play video games instead of reading the chapter. And then based on that reason, write at least 3 different ways you could have handled the situation. So I'll give you just one example and then I'll leave you to it. So let's say that you chose this one, I couldn't find my book. Okay, if you couldn't find your book, what could you do? Well, a lot of books are on the internet, so you could look and see if the text was on the internet. That would be an example of something you could do. So you see that the options, the different ways, are different based on what the root of the problem was. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and come up with those 3 different ways you could have handled the situation. And then you're going to circle the one you think is the best one to try and write why you chose the strategy. Oh, and just remember that when you're choosing which strategy to use, you want to either choose the one that you're super motivated to do. It sounds exciting or interesting. You're into it. That's one reason you might choose a strategy. Or you might choose a strategy because you really think it's the most likely to work. It just makes the most sense to you. Or you might choose a strategy like I did because it was just the simplest. It was the easiest one to just try out and see if it worked. No fuss, no muss. Okay, so now please pause the video, write at least 3 different ways you could handle the situation, circle the one you think is the best to try, and write why you chose that solution. Did you come up with some creative ideas? All right, so hopefully you're getting the hang of the idea of analyzing your problem and coming up with several different ways to solve it, and doing that without judging yourself, right? Because you're just looking at how to solve the problem. It's not an opportunity to say, oh, I'm so lazy, or oh, I never do the right thing. We all have problems, okay? But I also catch another brainwave that's out there in the ether. I think I'm reading some of your guys' minds. I think some of you are saying, I think there's a 5th step to this self-coaching thing. Yeah, I think there's a 5th step, and I think that's where I ignore my own good advice, I ignore my own coaching, and do whatever I feel like. Because guess what? The chapter is still boring, and I would still rather play video games. And I'm going to do what I want to do. Well, you know, that is true. That can happen. There's no one that is going to be able to make you follow through on any of those suggestions that you came up with in your self-coaching steps, right? So why do we do things that we don't really feel like doing? Why do we do good things that we don't really feel like doing? Well, here's where I'm going to leave you with the last key idea about being your own coach. So here's the secret ingredient in coaching. Coaches give good advice that players listen to because the players and the coaches have the same goal, winning the game and eventually the championship, right? So in order to be your best self-coach that really motivates you to be your best self and do the things that you picture yourself doing in your mind, you got to decide for yourself, what is your game, metaphorically speaking? What is your championship? What is your big why that motivates you to be the best player, student, person you can be? Is it making your family proud? Is it preparing yourself and gaining skills to make a dream career come true? Is it being someone your friends can look up to? Is it just getting good grades and staying out of trouble so you can keep your phone privileges? Only you know what your championship title is. And when things get hard, you must remember that motivation and draw power from it to keep on keeping on and be resilient. So in order to remember that motivation and bring it to the front of our minds, we're going to write it down. Please take a minute and complete this sentence in your journal. You might already know this answer. It might come easy to you. You might have more than one answer ready, or it might take some time to figure it out. I am motivated to be the best I can be because. If you couldn't come up with an answer today, I want you to take this page out of your journal and put it where you will see it every day. And when the answer does come to you, fill it in and notice how having a sense of purpose can help you be strong and follow through. You did it! I'm so proud of you. You made it through all 4 parts of week 3. I hope you learned some things that will help you have healthier friendships with others and above all with yourself. Here are some practice activities that will help you apply and retain the concepts we discussed. Place your I am motivated to do my best statement where you can see it. Seeing your goal can help you stay on track to take the steps to meet your goal. Seeing a blank there can remind you to be curious and notice about yourself what interests you and what energizes you. Number 2, can you recall the 4 steps of self-coaching? If not, don't worry, you wrote them down in your journal. Look for opportunities to use these steps throughout the summer of learning. That can be anytime you make a choice that later turned out to be not such a good idea, or you are in a problem situation that you are having a hard time figuring out. And there are other times when you could use those steps as well to improve your own performance. The third item is be sure to post to the week 3 discussion and respond to the posts of others. We learn more by sharing and articulating our own thoughts and also listening to others with an open mind. Above all else, be kind to yourself and others today and every day. I wish you all the best and all the success. I may see you again in week 5. Thank you for spending this time with me and enjoy your day. Peace.